Sorry about that. There's glass over here. Uh, Good morning, everybody. It's the pollinator. And right now, I feel like saying, as Robin Williams said in his movie, one of his movies, good morning, Vietnam. Listen, I made I started this video before and I got some weird error message that I couldn't exactly see it and it went away real quick. So I started over. I made a video on May 30th and what a difference a week makes. Or is it what, 10 days? In 10 days, the world has began to change. Young people aren't putting up with this, what they finally saw. And if there's a silver lining in this pandemic, COVID-19, the virus, is that people are at home instead of running around doing their daily life. And finally, en masse, saw what happened to George Floyd, which was the catalyst to all these protests. And they still haven't stopped protesting. In our circles, we have been saying that we didn't create racism. So we can't get rid of it. See? White people created the word race in the 1800s, and then they created racism by the way that they treated us as slaves. And everything throughout history that has happened ever since has created this very intense level of systemic racism in this country. So what is happening right now is a great start to, it's not a revolution on our part, but it is a revolution on the part of the entire world is saying, what? They finally saw it because they're sitting still. If they haven't been sitting still because of COVID-19, this wouldn't be happening. So there is a silver lining in this pandemic, and it was time for people to finally stop saying this isn't as big of a problem as it is. We're the ones who know it's huge. They didn't know. The people who created this word and these systems, and they maintain those systems, even complicitly. Sorry, I've got eyelashes turning around in my eye. The ones who didn't consider themselves racist, they didn't see it either. They didn't see it. The racists think it's right, but the people who think it's wrong are all these young people. Good God. I'm so proud of them all around the world for finally saying, oh my God, we see it. We see it now. Now, not everybody does. There's a lot of people that are still running around denying what's going on and victim blaming and all the things that they do. But they're being overshadowed by the sheer volume of people that are still out there protesting. Now, I said in that last video that this would blow over and would be no big deal unless it started happening in 50 to 100 cities in America. Well, it happened. It wasn't a prediction on my part. It was just a, what if? Or yeah, I was playing devil's advocate, basically, that unless the protests were going on everywhere, it would probably blow over. Well, this isn't blowing over. So it's a great start, folks. It's a great start, but there's still a lot of work to be done. You know, I was talking to my stepmother, and she was mentioning how bright and how smart and how articulate these young people are today. I don't see them any differently than when I was that age, but they are primed for the pump because they're the ones that can stand in those streets for hours. I can't do that. I can't even stand out there for 10 minutes without needing to find a seat to sit down. So they are primed to pick the ball up and run with it. And and corporations and all sorts of people are jumping in the act. But notice I said act. Now there's activism and then there's the act. There's the PR. Oh, yeah, you know. But the NFL, Roger, what's his last name? Codell, Roger, okay, whatever his last name is. You know, he got up and paid lip service to saying that he finally understood the necessity of his ball players speaking out against this stuff. But you know what? He didn't say diddly about Kaepernick, who peacefully protested. And what did they call him? A traitor to his country, and they whiteballed him from the NFL. Now, if Roger Goodell, if he meant what he said, he wouldn't just be making a statement. He would put Kaepernick back in there, even though he's older now. He's probably still more talented than a lot of those other players on the team, quarterbacks. So to me, he's doing a PR thing. And a lot of other corporations are too. Until they start hiring and putting, and these are spread throughout most of my videos. Here, there, everywhere. But until they start hiring people in executive positions, not just as employees, executive positions in the corporations, and hiring black employees in the industries that are, I forgot to turn off that fan, in the industries that are doing the best in this country, which is tech businesses. Until they start hiring us, until they start changing the infrastructure of why racism is allowed to flourish and make them rich and not us, that has to change too. And we're not talking about just big corporations. We're talking about small ones too. We're talking about small businesses. Listen, okay, before I get into that, let me say something about a comment I made that I didn't really explain that has a lot of people mad at me, you know, in various places. Probably had them mad at me when I was on Facebook. And that is why I do not do the non-binary, gender non-conforming thing. It isn't that I have a problem with their identity. It isn't that I have a problem with their right to exist and call themselves whatever they want to call themselves. I don't care. The problem is inside of the organization, they were making everything about their transition instead about being black. You understand? It is a pronoun fight up the yin yang. And when you're looking at somebody's name, you don't know what unless there's some designation on their name, you don't know whether they're male, female, or they or them. So they were always breaking out, starting arguments in the group. It was bad for morale. That was going on so much. and the constant comments that they seem to make about binary transgender people. I hope I don't forget what I was thinking before, but I probably will. Yeah, unless they stop doing that crap and picking fights and calling us hyper masculine, toxic, blah 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 for being binary just off the bat. Until that stops, guess what? Their focus is, they take their focus off of the mission of my organization, which doesn't have a hill of beans to do with their transition. Has a little bit to do with it, but the primary focus is in there is being black first, being about black people first. That's what it's about. That's what's meant by pro-black. Doesn't mean black only. Doesn't mean anti-white. It just means black first. When was the last time we put ourselves first? Was it during the 1960s? Partially. But it was during times when we had our own communities that we were putting us first. Yeah, we did business with white people. We did businesses with all sorts of kinds of people. But our communities were using black dollars. There were black businesses. There were hospitals. There were schools. There was infrastructure. There was grocery stores. There was all kinds of things like that in the Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where Black Wall Street were. But there's other cities where it was. Anyway, that's why my organization is binary based only, because we're not going to sit around and coddle somebody's fucking issues with their pronouns. It's a pronoun nightmare out there right now. I just saw another one the other day. Another one that takes the place of Mr. and Ms., which is mix. M-I-X. Well, I'm sorry, M-X. Pronounced mix. But listen, I always said that, if you're non-binary, gender non-conforming, you're saying you don't have a gender. You weren't even born a gender, which is their choice. But it's impossible. If it were not for binary people, we wouldn't exist to even be claiming no binary. Non-binary transmasculine. That is a contradiction in terms. If you're non-binary, why would you be masculine? That's binary. I don't know. Anyway, so back on what I was talking about before I got into that, and I went off on a tangent, and I can't remember. I just wanted to clarify that you know what they can do. I don't care what people do. I don't care what people do behind closed doors. I don't care what people do in the light of day, as long as it doesn't put anybody in danger, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. They can be whatever they want to be. But I am very, very binary based. And maybe it's a generational thing. Could be. I'm 62 years old. And the average age around the internet is in their 30s. And the people pushing this gender non-conforming and non-binary stuff are typically young people in their 20s or their teens. And, but, let's go back to what's going on in this country. I am so drained by all of this. I don't know if other people feel drained by everything going on. In the face of George Floyd's funeral and him being murdered. In between him being murdered and this funeral, there's still more killings going on. Police are still killing black people. Now, they've gotten to the point where, people doing inappropriate things, citizens, I wouldn't call the police citizens. They are citizens of the United States, but they're not governed by the same thing. Like, I heard something, and I think it was Trevor Noah, who said, they like to talk about the police in terms of there being bad apples and there being good apples with pilots. How would anybody feel if they had a bad apple pilot? Can't have no bad apple pilots, right? Or they'll crash the plane. They can't fly the plane. They have to be trained. They have to be licensed. They have to pass all sorts of stuff. So you can't have any bad apple pilots. And then he brought up another analogy. You can't have any bad apple surgeons. How would you like it if the medical industry said, oh, well, we've got some bad apples, but most of the surgeons are good? Now, I made that up. Trevor didn't say that. I made that up. But, what if? Can that industry afford to have bad apples? No. So neither can the police afford to have any corruption and bad apples. People are talking about tearing this shit down. In Minneapolis, they want to completely dismantle the police department and start all over. I don't know what they're, if the unions are involved, they're going to have to change the unions before they can dismantle a police department. The entire Minneapolis police department, because it's so corrupt, because people are telling them the numbers finally. There's 13% black people in Minneapolis. And the amount of killing of black people in Minneapolis is 13 times the population of the entire city. Black people are 13 times more likely to get killed by the police for no reason. And all you got to do is go out there and look, video after video after video of black people being killed for inappropriate reasons. Breonna Taylor, inappropriate. So, they're trying to touch the underbelly of this issue by, demanding that, no chokeholds, no more being able to just bust into somebody's house without a warrant. Little things like that here and there. But I don't know if it's enough to change the heart of the people who have really got their hands on the pulse of America. And it is not those young people, not yet. They have not found their way yet. They have not found their career. They haven't found any of that stuff yet. So guess who, unfortunately, is running things in this country? My generation. I don't like to say that because people are throwing everything they can at baby boomers. But, that's just the name of the game. When the young people now become our age, they're going to be running things. So that's just, the way the world is. But, so the hearts and the minds have to be changed authentically for baby boomers, for Generation X, or is it Z? The one right behind me. And some of the millennials. Is this changing their heart? How many people are just going along with it because they're sheep? They just go with the flow. With whatever trend is going on, they go with it. And then when they get scared or whatever, they run away. How many of those people out there are authentic about change for black people? Now, we have to do some work as well. But see, the bar has always been higher for us to jump. That's why we don't seem to be getting anywhere very fast. We don't have land like the Native Americans. They give us that kind of land, and we have 44 million people in this country. We can do far greater things with it than the 8 million Native Americans that are left in this country. Yeah, that's the history of this country. They killed all of them, except for 8 million. And there's hardly any of them left, and they're out there protesting for us too. They are here, there. They've got land. Don't know what they're doing with it, except that guess what? The establishment keeps trying to take it from them. Keeps trying to put pipelines through it. Keeps messing with their sacred holy land. Messing with our drinking water, and all sorts of shit is happening that they keep trying to take their land away from them. They do have sovereignty. Now, what would give 44 million people in this country sovereignty and see what happens? We'll make that shit stick. Native Americans are having a hard time making that stick because they'll come out, various government entities, politicians will come in and try to, water down their laws and take the shit from them anyway. Change the laws, try to change the laws on them that their sovereignty allowed them to have. But black people don't have anything. We don't own anything. Only celebrities own things. The most average citizens will ever own in their life is a house. Not a skyscraper, not a city block, not a bunch of stores, not grocery stores, not hospitals, not tech companies, we don't own anything except what they allow us to own. What they feel safe with which is just entertainers and athletes. I'm going to tell you something, and I don't want you to take it the wrong way, but listen, I was at I got treated really, really, really wrong by a black male doctor at the VA emergency room. I was shocked. We have to start, listen, that's what I mean by white black or whitewashed black people, is that he was acting to me like an authoritarian, a tyrant, a bully, everything we've been taught by history to behave. In Africa, aside from being just extremely phobic, we were peaceful people before we were brought here 450 years ago. So all the violence we learned from them, and from being, you put a bunch of people in poor economic situations in this country and stick them in small pockets of cities and don't give them jobs and lay them off first, fire them for any reason. All that stuff. You're setting up an environment where people turn on each other. That's why I don't want to hear nobody tell me anything about black on black crime. You know who set up black on black crime? Systemic racism. White people. Willie Lynch. Maybe I'll pay somebody $5 if they go out and, that has never heard of that, to go out and research what that is. And then get ready for the shock of your life. This guy wrote a letter to tell white slave owners how to keep their slaves in line. How to set up the system that we are under today. Celebrity chasing. There's a wealth gap in our own community. Either you're an entertainer or a athlete, which gets you to celebrity. But guess who's pulling the strings in Hollywood? Jewish people. And guess who's pulling the strings in sports? White owners. They call them owners. Does that tell you anything? Owners. Now, why would they call them owners? Now, I know that's a business term, but guess what? In the NFL, that means they own them players. They are nothing but some very, very highly paid slaves on a plantation with white owners. There's a whole lot about this country that has to change in the middle of these, as an end result of these protests. Okay, they're starting to pull down statues that shouldn't be there about Confederacy, the losing end of the Civil War. They're starting to pull them statues down because they don't mean anything. And they're a sore eye. They're just a black eye to them beating their chest about getting their ass kicked and being horrible racists on top of it. Yep, statues are coming down. All sorts of stuff is happening all over the country. And when it's finished here, it's going to blow around the world. They're going to know what to do after we show them the way. The United States is a beacon. People look to this country for guidance and leadership. Now, we haven't had any for the last 3 years. We've had this idiot in the White House, this maniac. In the White House we built. Black people built the White House, that's right. By hand. It's been revamped a couple times since, but we built that bitch. We've got a maniac, a racist idiot who can't say anything decent to save his life or his presidency, his campaign. Now, I heard he said something stupid today or yesterday on Twitter about, I guess it was about George Floyd. I'm glad I didn't hear it because I don't want to be any more upset than I am. Because this stuff is heady stuff for us. We've been the targets of this for centuries, folks. And every time it happens, every time something happens that I know about, it triggers things that have happened to me in the past. It triggers it. Police brutality. I've been brutalized by the police. People calling us out our names. I've had that happen, especially growing up. Took me beating the shit out of a kid, though, before they stopped it. And my mother backing me. And as much as my dad wasn't there, when he was there, he was a beast. And I'll tell you another little story that happened is my sister was on the bus and was saving a seat for a friend of hers. And the bus driver had nerve to smack her legs off of the seat and said, "You can't save a seat." Now, every kid in the bus did that. Why he put his hands on my sister? Big mistake. My dad was home from the season, and we all went to that bus station. And I guess they wanted us to see what happened to him, what our parents together did to him or said to him, and they wanted us to see. So we walk in, and immediately the bus driver stands up. He was sitting down, and he stands up and he recognized my father. Now, up to that point, he didn't know he was getting ready to be face to face with Bob Gibson. He didn't know that. So he jumped up excited and wanted to shake his hand. My father put he wasn't one to put his hands in his pockets, but I guess he crossed his arms like, "Don't touch me." And the guy's face got really red. It was like, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble." And my father spoke first. I don't remember what he said because it was too long ago. But my father spoke, my mother spoke to him, very rough. I'm sure my mother said, "How dare you touch either of my children? You see my children on the bus, you don't do nothing. Don't ever touch them." And I think my dad threatened to kick his ass if he ever touched his children again. So he got a double dose from my mother and my father. And me and my sister got to sit there and see the whole thing. Then they got him fired. Now that's clout. That's, I guess, privilege in a way. Yeah, they fired him. He didn't get to drive buses no more. Got his, you have to have a CDL to be a bus driver. Anyway, whatever you have to get to be a bus driver for children, that thing got yanked. And we'd had little things like that happen throughout the time that we lived in that neighborhood. Little things like that happened that sometimes my dad was there, but most of the time my mother handled it. By the way, this is the last time I'm going to use this. It's uncomfortable. It buckles my shirt. I've got I've got it inside of my shirt, so it's a little uncomfortable because it's got, where'd it go? Oh, it's over here. Anyway, where was I? Shit. I was trying to make a correlation between oh, forgot. I am going to have to try to figure out how to use an editor so that when stuff like this happens, I can just stop, take a break, gather myself, and restart the video in the same video. If I stop it now, I got to make a whole new video. And with an editor, I can just edit out the pieces that I want. So, and then I can go back. I can go back and listen to where I left off so that I don't lose my train of thought. Well, it will appear as though I didn't lose my train of thoughts. That's what good video editors, people who edit their own videos, that's what they do to make them sound like they don't lose their train of thought, and they don't say, and they don't do a whole bunch of things that are discouraged as a speaker. Now, I don't think is a problem. But you wouldn't believe, over on the root, there's all these white people that are, and black people that are so mad at Obama that they are picking on him saying, oh, pull him in front of the teleprompter and you don't hear him saying, but when he's just talking off the cuff, he says, a lot. And so what? The guy is still articulate as hell. None of those people who said those things about him could talk as well as him. He just, I don't know. Some people say, and some people don't. Big deal. It's the message that they're delivering that they need to be paying attention to, not whether they put they say and they're thinking, and then they say something. See, I just did it. I just heard myself do it. And again, I bet video editors are editing that stuff out for a lot of people. The younger you are, this seems not to happen, but the older people, maybe our brain slows down. I don't know. It's a good topic or subject for you statisticians out there who love statistics. I don't. But anyway, I just came on here to say that what a difference a week makes. Could have told me this that the protesters would still be protesting and making demands. And a lot of them are white. Most of them now. That is remarkable. The young people. The young people are getting the older people they're embarrassed about how they've been about racism. And it took young people to say, this ain't right. And all these years they've been alive, they've been ignoring it. Or yes, they've been ignoring it. They've been saying it's not that bad. Don't think about it. They've just been complicitly in the dark, intentionally in the dark about this stuff. And it took young people to get them to take a look at themselves. Young protesters with no organization. This thing was disorganized as hell, and it's popping off all over the place. So and various police departments are being told, stand down. Don't be violent towards the protesters. That's in our Constitution. They have a right to protest. They become, the police are being provocative. And then there's a lot of, white troublemakers running around behind them, starting trouble. And black ones too. I'm not going to say it's just one race. There's a lot of different kinds of people that are doing crap out there instead of peacefully protesting. But the more peaceful they become, it seems like the less people are doing the crazy stuff to property and buildings and stuff like that. The more this goes on, the more peaceful this is becoming and effective. We've not had no peace since we were brought to this country, but they do expect us to come across as peaceful and nice and polite and all this stuff that is just not characteristic of most black people. We're either biting our tongue or biting our tongue, because we're not culturally, because of the situation we've been put in, we're more feisty than they are. Of course, they've been making that wrong all of these centuries. Maybe they'll stop making that wrong and listen. If they listen, we'll calm down. If they insist we're in the wrong for being upset and pissed off, they lose. And we do too. So, hey, you step to me, don't expect me to always be polite to you. Unless I have a reason to be polite to you. I'm just not that way off the cuff. Well, I am and I'm not, okay? There was this guy, there was a waiter at a restaurant that I used to frequent. I miss it, but I used to frequent. And this kid was so annoying. He argued with everybody. And one day I just gave it to him. Now, up until that point in time, I was tolerating his nonsense. He was a 20-something-year-old know-it-all and kept thinking that his book knowledge was more valid than experience. So he was disrespecting me all the time, Come find out he did that to a lot of people, a lot of customers of that restaurant. And the only reason why he stayed there was because the cook liked him. But the customers didn't like that guy because he was annoying. And so I let him have it. I let him have it so bad. You know, he saw what I had been biting my tongue for months to say to him. And because he lost the argument, he jumped up and said, I was being racist. I said, what? What? Oh, because you lost the argument, I'm being a racist towards you? You need to look up that fucking word, asshole, and shut up. Black people can't be racist. We didn't create that word. And it has more meaning than just somebody calling somebody the N-word. Look the word up in your Webster's dictionary. Tell me what it says. If we call out a racist, or if we call out racism, we're not racist. And as a people, who are we controlling with systemic racism? Nobody. We're the ones in control. We're not controlling. We don't even control you if we call you a cracker for the way that you are. That's not control. That's just hurting your feelings, which are easily hurt, which is called fragility, defensiveness, all that stuff. Well, the young people have paved the way for them to be defensive no more, for older people to be defensive no more, to stop the fragility and listen to what we've been going through here in the United States, to which a lot of people, this is caught on. I think I was the first to do it, but I spelt America Amerikka. Before I know, this year, boy, it's like wildfire everywhere. People are calling this place America. Black people are calling it America because that's the way we're treated. Like the KKK is all over the place. They're in every industry and every aspect of society. Politicians, of course, they're not going to say it out loud, but they're in the police department. They're everywhere. They're in every industry, in every country. Healthcare, they're everywhere, okay? They just don't have their hoods on anymore. They're doing it underhandedly. So I'm both very, very sad. I was going to talk about Tony McDade, transgender black man who got murdered in Tallahassee, Florida. You can look that up because it's kind of a weird, very, very sad story. And nobody knows what happened, what really happened, why the police shot him. You know, when white people point guns at other white people, they tase them. Well, when they point anything, yelling and screaming, cussing, spitting, all that shit at police, those white people are still living today. We do some shit like that, they'll kill us. They killed a little, I can't remember, somebody, Rice, a little kid who had a play gun in a store. They shot and killed him, saying that was a real gun. They'll find any old excuse to do that, folks, to shoot us. Young, middle-aged, old, and older. This is America's wake-up call. This is the world's wake-up call. So, good morning, America. Pollinator is out.